Rich, just as an FYI, the sound is muted. So there's no sound on the recording.
Flip the switch.
Rick, can you hear us now?
Yep. Thank you.
All right.
We need to start over, or we can proceed.
Yeah, let's start over. That's just as easy.
We got a reverb.
Is your mic on?
Your speaker's on.
Oh,
All right. What do you want, Richard? Do you want to? Well,
He's got some reverb going. He's gonna get shut down. And then we'll go. All right. Can you still hear us, Rick?
Yep. Good sound. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna go back and start over with roll call. I have Bachhuber, West, Shaw, Pollock, and Potter in attendance, Jackson and Kenor not.
all right. And we're going to ask for approval of the minutes from July 19th, 2023. Do we have a motion for that effect?
I move approval.
I'll second.
We got a first and second, and any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, nay, and abstain.
I'll abstain.
There we go. How's that?
Perfect.
You adjourn. Okay, we've got two big topics tonight that might take a few more minutes. That's why the meeting got pushed into a 45-minute. Hopefully we can still be efficient here. I talked to Richard and Eric yesterday about these two topics. My opinion was to talk about number 3 first. So I'm going to ask permission to talk about the new for number 3 item on the agenda
That's fine.
before number 2. Okay.
Mhm. I think that makes sense.
All right. They both involve issues with the rates, the current rates. I'm gonna turn it over to Richard, maybe, if you want to take a stab at this too.
Can't shut the door.
I'll leave the door open.
You have to-
Eric.
It's an open meeting. You have to have the door open. Yeah, that works.
All right. So we'll see if this is any more efficient than what we talked about yesterday, but Richard, you want to take a crack at this to explain?
Sure. The current referendum, the second referendum for the flood damage is going to expire at the end of the first quarter of 2024. There's some council effort to, on the April ballot, have another referendum to continue that funding level going forward so that we could. It's actually gonna change the first referendum, but we're gonna let the other one sunset because that was restrictive to flood damage. So a third referendum is gonna be needed to get anything more than the original $15 ERU. Well, that's a summary of what this is. So we're looking to see if you guys want to increase that and go to referendum to recommend to council to do that.
And the request is to maintain the current $45 per ERU rate at this point, at this time, or at the April referendum.
At this time, yeah, that's
Yeah,
is
I
the
think-
suggestion, because we don't have a complete inventory and maintenance plan completely figured out for the rest of the features, and honestly, even if we could look at potentially different assets, increasing the assets that we do have. So part of the other discussion is doing some of that work.
Would that $45 be continuing?
Well,
Yes. it
no,
would. The 40,
30 would discontinue.
Right.
And then the 15 would maintain. And then they're gonna ask for another 30
Right,
so it
differently.
would stay at 45.
right, just stay at 45
Essentially, yes.
until it changes.
Until we go back to referendum.
No, well,
Yeah.
yes, if you
To
could
raise
get
it
it,
above 45.
if you can do it in the spring. Otherwise, it's gonna expire.
Right.
Between the April election and the November
Yes,
election.
so we've got to do it in April because it expires. And if we do it in the fall, we're asking for a $30 increase after it just got dropped to 15.
Correct.
I think that's a good way of doing it. I think spring election is better than fall. I know there are people that say go in the fall, and I know for the flood,
Mhm.
I had a long disagreement with Mike Davis over the time.
Mhm.
He wanted to do the fall. I pushed for the spring just because it was in everybody's memory of the flood.
Mhm.
And it passed by 70-something%.
And the spring election is the local election.
Yes.
And so I think it makes sense to do it in spring
Mhm.
for that fact.
Right. It gets the people that are truly interested in city government
Yeah.
voting.
Right.
And I think the big issue is just simply going to be how you sell it. How you sell it to council. I have not a clue how this council will work.
Okay.
But that was the biggest, in the two previous ones, selling it to council was the hard part. It would pass by one vote the first time. And then pass by 67% with
Right.
the citizens.
Right. Right.
So council is the hard one.
But we do a lot different makeup of the council also. Is it, but this recommendation that we're discussing is not just to go to referendum in the fall, in the spring, excuse me, in April for the maintaining the rate, but you're also including these two staff positions that we'd like to submit. Is that all one package?
I think that's number,
No, that's.
We're talking three.
We're right.
Yep.
We're on the right.
Yeah,
yep, that,
because
yes,
I think the original referendum did not eliminate staff positions or anything. It was a very broad referendum. Council limited what we would fund.
Right.
Right.
But again, what staff is requesting and recommending is they got two positions here, stormwater related positions, so that by maintaining, if I have it right, by maintaining the $45 level, we can still do all of our maintenance type efforts that we are charged to do and take on these two stormwater positions for the city.
correct,
Is that a fair encapsulation?
yep.
Mhm.
All right. Discussion?
I think it's a good idea because we're short-staffed.
So
And what we're doing is taking people from public works or not getting people from public works, roads and stuff when we need to be doing stormwater things.
David?
yeah, I'm just assuming that the two staff members, they're only able to be kept with the $45 fee, correct?
Hired.
Hired, excuse me.
There's a
Hired.
big difference.
Okay, so I mean, yeah, I want to make sure that was the case. Yeah, no, staff around here is spread thin. There's just no
Very
doubt
thin.
about that.
With the $15 ERU, the annual revenue is
300,000.
280,000,
Uh-huh.
and it's 3 times that much with the $45.
Right, and you can hire people to oversee things and hire people, contractors and materials and get things done.
Well, that might give us 500,000 a year in revenues to put towards maintenance projects,
Right.
not so much, or, barely, a little bit.
I think one thing that's important in terms of selling this both to council and citizens is for The people that live in the older part of Middleton where we don't have stormwater detention ponds do not think it's their issue because they really aren't real clear about storm sewers.
Mm.
I mean, it was quite interesting.
There are a lot of things like that, though.
Yeah, but for them, they're looking at it, we don't want to ask our citizens to pay any more. And so they immediately balk.
Well, we
And,
don't want to ask our citizens to pay more, but
but we've
we-
got to
we-
provide the basic services.
and the state ain't helping us out.
Right. So this is the one way we can get them.
Yeah.
And a subtle thing is by hiring 2 new staff people to do this means there's more staff people in terms of roads and the other public lands.
Services.
Right.
Erica, you got any comments, questions, thoughts?
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Okay. So the motion here would be that it goes, we recommend to council or to finance and,
Probably finance and then council.
okay, so so the motion is to recommend to finance, make a referendum be, established, written, drafted,
I think
implemented
for the April
for
election.
the April election date to maintain the $45 current rate
Mhm.
without a sunset.
Yes, I think that is very
That's
important because that's what
I-
happened before, when I took the 45 before.
I know.
Joanna Richard
Yeah.
cut it back to a 5-year sunset.
So,
Yeah, I think the no sunset's super important.
right. You want to read that back and then somebody, if they're willing to, make a motion to that effect. Write it down.
So we're looking for a motion to recommend to finance and city
And
council
council.
to proceed to pursue a referendum to maintain the $45 ERU without a sunset.
Right. And we go to referendum in April of
April, yeah.
2024.
Make
For
it-
at April.
Do we need anything about the employees in there?
I don't think so.
Okay,
This is just to go to referendum to
right.
get
I know.
the money and then
Okay. So
how
make sure
we
we,
sell it to citizens and council. That's when we
okay, all right.
do that part.
I'll make that motion.
I will second it.
Any other discussion on that seconded motion?
Does this mean street sweeping will be done
Among other
by
things?
somebody other than Bill Byers, who's very nice and does a good
I
job?
see him out there. He's the
He
guy.
waves at me all the
Man
time.
out there, yeah, yeah. All right, we have a motion. It's got seconded. There's no more discussion?
Nope.
All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Now, the first topic, or number 2 on the agenda, is I'm gonna let Richard run with this one too, but I want to say, this is how utilities were supposed to get developed in the beginning. You're supposed to do an assessment or a rate study to find out what your needs are, what your program costs currently, and what you want it to cost, and then calculate the rate. We didn't do that in whatever it was.
2014, I think.
2014. So this is a request,
Yeah.
and Richard, you can augment my statement here, to do that study, to find out what a program could entail and what part of that program we want to fund through a utility. And we gotta hire someone to do that study.
That was the caveat I was waiting on, was to hire a consultant to assist with that process. But otherwise, I think you got it exactly right, what we're looking for.
I've done a few of these, so.
But yeah, that would be the goal, is to put that together the way it probably maybe should have been in the beginning. And
So, go ahead. Well, let me ask a question, Susan, before. So that in these agenda, it says, you know, the first sentence is temporarily increase ERU from 40. We don't need to even, that isn't even part of the motion. If the first motion that we've already made and adopted, that's already in place.
I'd agree. And part of this was written not fully understanding if we were gonna push that
Chicken or egg, yeah.
in push the referendum or push for the referendum. You know,
I understand.
so.
But if finance and council do not approve of the referendum, then we'll have to reconvene and try to come up with something else.
Yes.
Well, if they don't approve the referendum, let me see if we could still do the study. We'd go back to $15 an ERU in April. The study would take place. It might take a year for that study to get done.
Okay, so we still could fund the study.
Still fund the study.
All right, all right.
From fees in lieu of,
Well, no, from the utility balance.
oh, okay, from the
Utility.
utility, yeah.
But it'd be this gap of who knows, 12 months, and then we gotta go back to referendum to get the rate changed to whatever this rate study
Right.
recommends.
Right.
Okay, I have one comment on this. Since we are basing our ERUs on one per residence,
Mhm.
and then only square footage for businesses, would that simplify a lot, this study?
It does. We're not
Yes.
asking the study to read and analyze our ERU structure.
Okay, that needs to be, I think, clear.
Okay.
Because that was the thing that we came up with,
Right.
is if you start really GIS mapping all the ERU
Right,
units, it was, we're paying a
It's a big effort.
fortune for just mapping.
My understanding is in our discussion, we have that piece of the
That
picture
part's
already
done.
figured out.
Yeah.
It's the needs or the program part that we don't
And
have figured out.
in terms of selling it to a lot of people in the city, I think this is real important for those that live in apartments. The ERU will be actually mapped out for the impervious area of the apartment. And the owner of the apartment will pay based on that. And hopefully he is fair and breaks that up cost to the units. So
Okay.
it's not as much for apartment owners. And we've got at least 40 to 50% apartment dwellers.
I think you could probably look at some examples for apartment complexes right now to say, well, on the average, there's a 100-unit apartment complex here. Here's their rate, and here's what the individual units would break out if they.
Yeah, I
are
think
being
that would be
charged.
a good, helpful piece of information. And that was one of the critical things in getting it passed initially, was convincing, like the District 4 alder down on Allen Boulevard, that it wasn't going to hurt that area, especially with a lot of lower income
Mhm,
apartments.
Right. But I would guess that would be substantially less than a full ERU per.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying,
Dwelling
because
For
of,
dwelling unit.
Yeah, yeah.
it makes it substantially less.
Yeah.
And then the other thing to keep in mind is on garbage collection, we do not pick up garbage from those apartments. And garbage collection comes out of the basic tax bill. So those people are actually getting charged double because they have to pay the landlord for the service he provides, and then the landlord's charging them for the property tax.
That's not part of this.
No.
But it's not
But
part of it, but it's
a-
relevant
It's
to it.
it's an issue.
I mean, it's relevant in terms of getting people to approve it.
Okay. So basically, we're looking for a motion to approve an RFP to hire a consultant to do a rate study analysis. Up, they want to make it a max of 50,000? You want to say that's the number, or how do you want to do that?
We know, well, if you're approving the you're only approving writing the RFP, our estimate is 50,000.
Yeah,
When they come back with
We'll know
with the
real numbers then.
proposal,
Yeah.
we'll have a price and we'll be able to approve a price, but that was just a,
Okay,
fair enough.
Yes.
So we won't put a number on this motion, won't have a number. It's approval for the RFP.
correct.
I would make that motion.
So we are okay to spend the money to get the RFP out. Okay. Right,
Yeah, that's a legitimate utility.
yeah, I mean, I thought so, but I just want to make sure that I
And
understood.
That's for this board to decide, right?
Yeah.
I
Right.
mean, we've had these discussions traditionally.
And I don't think there's anyone on council that remembers some of the previous objections to
Okay.
projects.
All right, so we have the motion. You made the motion.
Mhm.
Susan made the motion. Need a second.
I'll second it.
Dave seconds. Want to read that back just to make sure everybody understands?
Sure. West moved to approve the RFP process to get a proposal to
Conduct a rate study.
conduct a rate study.
Stormwater utility rate
Those
study.
are good words. Conduct a rate study.
And I think that's quite reasonable because the city's grown enough since 2015 that we've added a lot of land.
And we'll be
Houses.
continuing to.
And we'll continue to, yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments, discussion on that motion? Richard?
The only thought I have on there is the ability to seek assistance to draft an appropriate RFP.
You need our,
Meaning,
I think we could,
you think staff can handle that? If you're comfortable,
I'm
then,
willing to
Yeah.
help you. I think that's helpful.
If you
Okay.
want any information
Well, there's
about the
an idea.
previous ones,
Yeah,
call
just-
me.
just to have somebody proofread it and just
Yeah.
make
I'll
sure
proofread it.
we're looking for everything, getting everything we want.
I can give you an example.
Okay, that would be helpful.
And I can proofread it and answer questions about the previous two.
That would be also helpful. I don't think that there's a huge sense of urgency because we won't be able to get this done by April.
No,
And
No. the
So-
RFP goes out in 2 or 3 weeks. It's gonna take a month to get them back.
we're never gonna make it in time
No.
for the April
Right.
election.
That's not gonna happen. If you wanna make that a requirement of the RFP, you might reduce your submittals. Somebody wants to do that.
Okay, I have one question on increasing the rate. Do we need to rewrite that initial establishment of the stormwater utility? I thought it was fairly comprehensive and it was just finance that was limiting what we spent money on.
I think we'll have time, Susan. We can review that between now and then.
Because I
You talking about
know,
the referendum language itself?
yes,
Oh, okay, yeah, that's,
I think it was pretty inclusive, but we advertised it and basically sold it to citizens on it was just going to be
Yeah.
maintaining existing structures. And then there were arguments at council about, well, that doesn't cover the engineering costs to design the maintenance. That sort of thing,
I know.
but, or because we sold it to citizens, but I think the referendum itself covered all of it. So I think we want to
I
get
think
that
we'll need
clear.
to, I think that the crafting of that language will be a process, I'm sure.
Or maybe it's
Council.
already done, is what I'm thinking.
Well,
That needs to be looked at to see if it's sufficient.
there's no language right now for the referendum language itself has not been written. So-
No, I think she's speaking of the
I'm
first
talking
referendum,
about
the original
The
one.
Oh,
original
oh,
referendum
oh,
covers what we want to do
okay.
and that we just narrowed it
Use it.
down to,
Yeah.
because we knew it wasn't going to cover everything.
Yeah. Okay, we still have a motion on the table to, for staff to, advertise for an RFP for conducting a rate study, for a stormwater utility. That was made by Susan, I think.
Yeah.
You made the
Nope.
motion, Dave seconded.
Yep, Weston
Any
did.
other discussion? And all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Got that recorded as 5-0.
Okay. You got a number 4.
Budget deliberations. Eric and I have prepared two budgets. One is operating and one is capital. I'm trying to get fully on screen here. What you see first is the 5-year draft budget, the capital budget request. For the most part, we would be just looking at the second column. I mean, obviously, we can shift those other ones around as projections, but I'm not certain we need to do that now.
You haven't done anything yet on the Middleton Hills Southeast Pond.
Just some initial survey work.
Measuring it, not,
It's in the early stages of design.
okay,
No construction, but some design.
yeah.
So the idea would be to let it have advertised for the dredging part or the construction part in 2024 and have the work done in 2024.
Hopefully, yes, that's the goal.
Mhm. And that's a fairly small pond.
Yeah.
But it's the same amount of work for us as the
Yeah,
massive one.
Well, I mean, in terms of the guys out in the field.
Yep.
You think we'll be done talking about Graber Pond by 2024? I
No.
picked that off the record. I should have. That's inappropriate. All right.
This one's got a lot of dirt in it.
I know myself.
It's the first pond.
Any discussion on the proposed capital budgets for 2024?
No.
Or others? Not asking for an approval, or it's just informational?
Actually, we're looking for a bit of an approval because we have to submit this to finance tomorrow or Friday. We have to package it up.
Well, I recommend that we approve it and you submit it to finance.
Well, before you make them, you get a second on that, I just want to ask the question, do you want to package this with the non-capital part of the budget, which is the next page?
I think they've got to be separate.
All right, we'll go separate. So we got a motion to approve the capital budget as presented on this table for 2024. Doesn't really apply to other years. You're comfortable with that, Susan?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Need a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the proposed capital budget? Hearing none, we'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
And the next presentation I have is the operating budget. Eric and I had a discussion and thought that moving some of the things out of the operating budget of the WRMC was appropriate to place in the budget for the stormwater utility. And we've listed those items in this spreadsheet, as we feel they do relate most directly to the stormwater utility responsibilities.
Okay, so this would in effect have an impact on the WRMC budget then also by approving this.
It'd be nearly an equal reduction from that.
Yeah,
But it's getting council to think about the budgets of the two.
The other thing
appropriately.
we've added in here is the adaptive management costs that we're paying annually,
Right.
which have traditionally been a water resources capital budget item.
that's the biggest change we're talking about here is that $61,000.
Correct.
62,000. And that's, we don't have much, I mean, there's not a lot of options. One way or the other, we gotta pay that $62,000
Right,
or be in fault of the DNR's permit.
yeah.
Correct.
But the other thing, in looking at the big picture of the city budget, council sets an upper limit of how much they're willing to borrow for capital projects.
Hmm.
They are still way below what's actually allowed. But they don't like
You know, I did
increasing
too
that.
close. This,
And so they're cutting capital budgets in other departments,
okay.
other than roads.
So this, did I hear you right, Eric? This $62,000 used to come out of the capital line of what, of water resource management?
Yeah, and you'll see it in the next meeting. It's still sitting in that budget.
So we're cutting capital budget. Yay.
Let's put something else in. So that you don't decrease water resources capital budget.
The other items are pretty much stuff that's required by the permit. We've been doing them. Nothing significantly different from past years on the
Mhm.
line items there.
That's correct, except for the last item has been beefed up.
Oh, okay.
And SWAB approved an initial contract with MSA to do some inspection services and things like that.
Those are for the privately owned,
Privately owned facilities.
And that's very much needed.
try and keep ahead of what haven't been able to do in the past. So, okay,
Well, it also lets these the owners of the private ones realize that they need to be taken care of them because there was a
yeah,
big issue
Yeah.
of one development didn't think they had to pay for it.
or they don't even realize it's there, that landowners change hands and all of a sudden, what is this?
No, it wasn't
right.
even that. They just didn't think they had to do anything.
Okay. So you want a motion to approve the operating budget as presented on this table for 2024?
I'll go ahead and make that motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion.
I mean, we should bring that up.
It's discussion time. Bring it up.
This does not include staffing monies at this point.
Right. And never, I bet it hasn't in the past either, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But there is also some personnel change requests from Public Works to Council and Finance for these positions. So they may come back and need additional funding for those. That said, after the referendum, that could be a modification to the budget.
Agreed. So what you're saying is, if I hear you right, Richard, these are for the positions that council may or may not approve of, first of all.
Right.
If they do, and the referendum passes, then we can revisit the budget, right, and amend the budget.
I think yes, I think that's the way it would work.
So there's a couple of hoops here to jump through.
You've also, in the past, this group motioned to accept responsibility or funding for staffing positions in previous meeting. So you've already said that, but you just have not assigned a cost to it or a budget to it.
And
But you recognized that that was part of what the stormwater utility would support, would be staff.
okay. I don't disagree with any of that. But I don't, are you suggesting or asking if we would add anything to this table, the current operating budget table, to recognize potential future staff positions?
That could either go two ways. We could add it to this with your recommendation, or put a part of the motion that if the referendum passes, we would add some staff to the budget.
I think that would be the way to do it.
I mean, I think you could go either way and be on record again that you support funding staff from the utility.
All right, I'm open to suggestions. So what are you saying, Susan?
The first thing that Rich said.
You want to recognize the potential for staffing in this motion that we're making right now for the 2024
Yeah,
program,
if the referendum passes,
contingent upon referendum.
referendum passing, we could cover the staffing.
Okay, my concern is that if we submit it that way to council and they say, well, we don't accept this recommendation, now you don't have this part either.
Can we make a second motion?
We can make a third, maybe a third motion, but
Third one,
yes.
but yeah,
I think make a third motion.
All right, so right now, the motion I think we just had and seconded, motion by Dave, seconded by Susan, was to accept this table, this budget, these numbers for recommendation for 2024.
Right.
Correct.
so who was the first? I'm sorry.
Dave,
Dave? Okay,
All right, that's the motion. Any more discussion? Okay, ready? All in favor, say aye.
aye.
And opposed, nay. All right. Now you want to make a motion about,
If the referendum passes, the staffing will be included in the utility.
SWUB supports if the referendum for maintaining the $45 rate is approved in April,
Right.
we would, what's the wording now? Support the additional staff positions as.
Or we
identified by
would
the-
fund the additional staff positions.
And that's a that motion. And
It's the referendum.
well, we've already got, okay, referendum's already been, we've already made that recommendation. This
Yeah.
motion recommends that those staff positions would be supported. Where does this motion end up going to? Just to either or
a matter of
We
record.
Recommend it to
Matter of record.
finance.
Yeah, I think
A
that's
matter
what
of
it
record,
is.
yeah. And matter of record is really
Okay.
important because that kept coming up in the past over all sorts of little issues of what the utility would
Yeah,
fund.
yeah.
I know there was issues of, no, we can't, the utility can't fund.
I lived through all those. I don't want to hear them
You don't
again.
wanna hear
Let's not go through it.
If my
And
I
memory,
argued about it.
Now I
way too
understand for a
much.
matter of record, okay,
and if my memory serves me correct, that the original referendum and list of items did include staffing,
Yeah,
but there was no approved
so
funding
this
for
just
it.
reinforces the
Yes.
intent. Make a motion. So
I made the motion.
that says, but Richardson.
What Richard
You
said.
can't point to Richard again, you gotta say it.
West moved to, if the referendum passes, that the utility would fund the 2 staffing positions that are requested.
The April 2024 referendum is adopted for the $45 rate.
Okay,
SWUB,
Or actually, it's a $30 increase or continuation.
okay, and they're just calling it for, I don't know.
I
it's
know,
semantics.
Well, you
It's a
could say
40
total of $45.
Total of
Total of
45.
45 rate.
Yes. that
do you
makes
want
me
to,
more
do you want to
comfortable.
tie yourself to that? What if the consultant for writing the referendum and the educational
won't-
information says otherwise?
We won't have the consultant report before we go to referendum.
Not that consultant, the referendum consultant.
Yeah. The
That
one that
isn't
was in the
part of
capital
this
budget.
discussion. Just food for thought as we're crafting.
Well, if,
a
in
rec-
that case,
a
we need
motion.
to decide tonight how much we want to go to referendum.
Can use.
Do we want to
wording.
stay at 45 or do you want to increase it
Well,
to 60?
Minimum of 45 total.
We've
I mean-
already, so the first motion we adopted tonight was, just said 45.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you may not need to include that at all anyway.
Okay,
We're at
okay, fair
45.
enough. I like it. Don't include the number.
So if April referendum passes,
Or recommends, supports. what do you want?
funds would fund the
Fund.
additional staff positions.
2 additional stormwater staff positions.
would fund requested
Okay.
2 staff positions?
Yes.
And I will review the tape tomorrow and make sure I get it right.
Is there any reason to be specific about which referendum we're talking about?
In this note, it says, does it say April 2024?
I just put April, but we can
Well,
remove that.
but before mentioned or
Yeah.
Yeah.
something like that.
Stormwater utility referendum.
Yeah.
Give it a name.
And with that, I'll second that.
So I have West motioned if stormwater utility referendum passes, SWUB would fund requested 2 staff positions.
If you would just add either the aforementioned referendum or the April 2024 referendum, just somehow.
Yeah.
Specify.
Okay,
All right. You got a first and a motion and a second, and then we're gonna have any more discussion? Everybody good? All in favor of that motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. And opposed? Hearing none. 1 minute to talk about meeting place.
I've got 3 minutes, but we can do that.
All right. Look at the clock on the wall.
That was wrong.
So it's just item number 5 remains.
Yep. I would advocate we go back to conference room B. I dislike being this far apart in trying to have discussions.
Yeah.
How about we go back to conference room B? And if there is an increase in COVID cases
Oh,
or a
well.
significant risk, we will move
Yeah,
back
if
here.
the health department says it's not a good idea. We wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And if there's a special need for a particularly well-attended public interest thing, we can always make accommodations.
You could leave it with a preference and be right, the council chambers as needed.
Right.
Thank you. I like that.
You need a motion for that, or we just do it?
I think we need a motion because we only approve council chambers for the hybrid meetings.
So moved.
Yeah.
So
Second.
it's preference for council, conference room B. Erica, you're okay with this?
Is that one there?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
going on the side.
Nice cozy room.
It's cozy, but it just. makes
We're
me-
not this far apart, you know?
Yeah,
That's the
right.
nice thing.
Yep. Also, we could use this room and set up tables in the center here and surround it, much like conference would be if necessary too.
Yeah.
But I like the ability to have flexibility.
It depends on how many people are attending in addition to the committee.
Understood. And it still can be a hybrid, right? You can still do the
Yep,
hybrid,
we can do hybrid in there as well, correct?
and you're not thinking around with all the sound stuff that seems to be.
It's a little less, but there's still a little manipulation.
Doing it.
All right. All right, we have a motion. We have, David made a motion for that.
I seconded.
Any more discussion? Right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay,
Right
and
on
you want me
time.
to adjourn by asking for a motion to adjourn, right? We also do this every time. Motion to adjourn. I need a
So
motion.
moved.
Susan with West move to adjourn. Or adjourn. Don't need to take a vote. All right, Potter seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Many thanks, folks.
Okay.